headache brewing behind his eyes, a stubborn reminder that he had been working non-stop for far too long. Every cell in his body screamed for a break, but there was no time for such indulgence. His responsibilities loomed large and unyielding. The man, whom we'll refer to as David, had always been ambitious. He was the kind of person who thrived on challenges. His peers admired his drive, but lately, that drive was feeling more like a heavy weight shackling him to a never-ending grind. The career ladder he was climbing towered ever higher above him, and each rung demanded more effort, more sacrifice. He couldn't help but wonder if he was losing a part of himself in the quest for success. As he returned home that night, the familiar scent of takeout wafted through the air when he stepped into his small apartment. It was a perfectly orchestrated reflection of his life, chaos wrapped in the guise of convenience. An array of takeout containers cluttered the kitchen counter, remnants of nights spent hunched over his laptop rather than preparing a nutritious meal or sharing a moment with loved ones. David sat at the table, surrounded by his unfinished work. As he started filling out spreadsheets and responding to emails, the fatigue settled deeper into his bones. His phone buzzed with a text from an old friend, someone who had pursued a different path. Her message was simple: "Hey, do you miss the outdoors? Let's go hiking this weekend." David hesitated. The thought of spending a day away from his responsibilities felt indulgent, selfish even. But something deep within him flickered at the idea. He hadn't been hiking in years. What would it feel like to own a couple of hours away from deadlines and to-do lists? Torn between the staunch loyalty to his work and the beckoning call of nature, David finally hit reply. "Sure, that sounds nice." The moment he sent the message, a weight lifted from his chest. The weekend arrived, and as David drove to the trailhead, he was swept by a tangle of emotions: anxiety, excitement, anticipation. The surrounding trees and mountains started to fill his vision, each mile pushing him further away from the confines of his office and chores. When he arrived, the sight that greeted him was breathtaking. The sun threaded its golden rays through the branches, while the crisp air rushed into him, invigorating tired lungs. His friend was already there, ready to embark on the hike. They began their ascent, taking in the stunning scenery, the vibrant hues of green from the foliage surrounding them, the sound of birds chirping merrily above. With each step upwards, David felt a strange lightness blooming inside. They talked and laughed, reminiscing about days long past, moments that had been lost in the chaos of adulthood. For the first time in what felt like ages, David's mind began to quiet. The burdens he carried, those deadlines, the anxiety, and the constant grind, began to recede. As they reached a high vantage point, the view stretched endlessly before them. Rolling hills dipped and arched into the horizon, and patchwork fields lay neat beneath the sky. All washed over him, a stark contrast to the sterile confines of his desk. This was wild, unfiltered life, beautiful and chaotic in its own right. David stood still, breathing deeply, allowing his senses to absorb everything the moment had to offer. "Do you ever feel trapped?" he asked, more to himself than her. "Like you're just going through the motions and life is slipping away?" His friend pondered for a moment before responding, "I think we all do at times. It's so easy to get caught up in what we think we need to do. But sometimes, it takes a moment like this to remember what truly matters." David nodded, the truth behind her words resonating within him. He thought of all those late nights spent working, ignoring the whispers of his heart that yearned for connection, adventure, and authenticity. Somewhere along the line, he had lost touch with the things that gave his life depth, that filled him with joy and a sense of belonging. As they descended, a newfound clarity began to take shape in his mind. The world outside continued to rush, filled with relentless demands, but within him stirred a seed of resilience. He realized he didn't need to choose between ambition and joy. He could craft a life that embraced both, fostering balance rather than conflict. David returned to his apartment that night feeling exhilarated. He stood in the middle of the mess strewn across his living space, and instead of feeling overwhelmed, he felt invigorated. He decided that moving forward, he would treat himself like an important part of the equation in his life rather than a mere cog in the machine. It was time to declutter his priorities, allowing space for what truly mattered: self-care, connection, and adventure. He carved out time for daily walks during lunch, swapped takeout for cooking fresh meals, and even joined a local club that focused on outdoor activities. In those moments, he began to rediscover himself. The joy of being present, the thrill of physical activity, and the camaraderie of friendships nurtured by shared experiences. Each weekend became an opportunity for exploration, whether it was hiking in the hills, wandering through art exhibitions, or volunteering for community projects. The joy he cultivated began to spill into his work environment. He was more engaged, inspiring others with newfound energy. He was no longer just a worker but a creator building a life that eluded him for so long. Months later, as he stood at a lakeside one breezy afternoon, David took a moment to reflect. He watched the water ripple as the wind danced upon its surface, and a wave of contentment washed over him. The struggles, the pressure, and the chaos still existed, but instead of being shackled by them, he had found a way to weave purpose and joy into the fabric of his life. He had transformed the burden of his ambition into a source of empowerment, driving him not out of fear, but from a desire to embrace every experience he could. He understood now that self-improvement is not about constant striving to be better in a conventional sense. Instead, it involves aligning one's actions with what is essential and nurturing the humanity inside. In this revelation, he recognized the importance of self-compassion and gratitude. Life was not merely about scaling heights, but rather thriving through the valleys too. Today, David stands as a testament to that discovery, a living reminder that we all have the power to craft our narratives. The moments we feel tired, overwhelmed, and lost can be opportunities instead, moments of awakening. In sharing this journey, it is crucial to remember that our lives are not simply a collection of tasks to check off, but a mosaic comprised of experiences that yield meaning. Embrace the chaos, seek balance, and let every challenge shape you. But do not forget to cherish the little things that add richness to the human experience. In conclusion, let this story serve to remind you that life isn't merely about what you achieve, but how you choose to live each moment. Step outside the conventions and embrace the wilderness of your being. Allow it to guide you to greater truths. When faced with overwhelming burdens, remember to pause, breathe, and recognize that you can create a life where joy coexists with responsibility. Seize the day, for within each of us lies the potential for remarkable growth and enlightenment, if only we give ourselves permission to explore the path ahead.